Welcome back. This is Justin Our Minds. I'm here with another friend of mine. He is a jack of all trades when it comes to storytelling. He's been a producer, or he is a producer. He is a ghostwriter. He's an author, actor, dancer, rapper sometimes, huh? This is my friend, Chip Hopper.
Great to be here.
All right. So what started the beginning for you? Like where did your it could be from a kid, from a teenager, like where'd you start getting this wanderlust for creating?
That's a deep question. I've always felt like storytelling was where it was at. And even when I was young, I remember my dad got the first camcorder one of those ones that was super big, runs the VHS tape in it, right? He got that. I was about 11 or 12 years old when he got that. And right from the get-go, I was making home movies and producing stories and telling stories about what was going on. I come from a family where knowledge was incredibly valued. We had a set of encyclopedias by the dinner table. And we would have dinner, and if we had a question that we didn't know the answer to, we would pull out these encyclopedias. And it didn't matter, this was in the early 80s, it didn't matter that the encyclopedias were a decade old even at the time. And we would find information on different letters. And so this idea of just knowing and understanding things has always been huge for me. Reading has always been big for me. I feel like reading and traveling are two of the best ways to actually learn how to step into other people's shoes.
It's almost one and the same sometimes too, right? It's like a imaginary travel, or in fourth dimensional travel through the universe.
I love that concept. Yeah,
that's awesome. So what were some of the first films, like what were you into? What did you start making when you were younger, like as a kid? Like what were some of the stories you made?
Like one of the ones that comes to mind was a kind of a detective story. It was the case of the leaky waterbed. So my parents' waterbed was leaking, and I just came up with this whole story around what had happened to make that happen and who had come into the picture, and created several characters around it. I loved the concept of making the inanimate have life, right? So things like when Pixar came out, it was just
what's a brave little toaster,
right down my path, right? And all those things. But when I was at BYU, where I got my undergrad, I ended up pioneering the animation program, and that was a collection of things that had come together into this space. For example, my dad got his first computer when I was 11 or 12, and I learned to program BASIC on it, and then I started coding in different languages, and then I got on what was the bulletin board system, which is back before it became the internet, and on my little 1200 baud modem. And the idea of, for me, connection is just such a big part of everything. And I found ways to connect with the computers. I found ways to connect with other humans. And when the internet actually became bigger, was jumping in that right away. And so all of those things kind of combined as I went through college, and went through everything from a pre-med major, electrical engineering tech major, computer science major, design major, illustration major, and then ultimately into computer animation. And it was just the ability for me to, and this has been one of the beautiful things that I've had in my life, is I've been able to sit in many different spaces and connect things that most people don't have the opportunity to have been through, if that makes sense.
No, that does.
And so it brought together, with the animation program, I brought together programming plus storytelling plus design and creation, and all those elements. I was able to say, okay, I've got this base and all these things. And as a ghostwriter, that's been a huge part of it for me as well, because I get to sit with experts in just about every field, from celebrities to athletes to people that have started businesses to top surgeons to top whatever. And I have to learn their knowledge, not just well enough to understand it, but well enough that I can write it as if I were them, right? Which has given me just this broad scope of knowledge. And so, when you
kind of falling into characters too, right? You got to play the character for a short
you got to step into them. Yep.
Yeah, listen to the different musics and styles and things like that too.
And when you say jack of all trades, I mean, I can't think of a better term than that, because uh, I went back and listed all the jobs I had when I was in my 40s. I was like, I wonder how many jobs I've had, because I knew I had had a lot. And I started documenting all the jobs that I had from even a very young age. I got my first paper route when I was 8, started mowing a lawn mowing business when I was like 10. And I went through it, and I had had 30 different jobs by the time I was 30. So it's like the 30 under 30
I'm like that
number of jobs I've had.
I looked at my I haven't had to use a resume for a while, but I looked at my resume and I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Same concept. My dad was like, you gotta have work. At 14, I did tree service work and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Worked all the way up to anywhere from a lot of blue collar stuff, and then now sales and acting and all these other fun things that I've added in there too. But yeah, it is wild to be able to. That's a man of experience, right?
Yeah.
And then curiosity.
And for me, like, it helped define who I am, so much so that when I look at where things are now, I'm like, how does someone get that kind of experience? Because more and more of those jobs are going away, right? And we're looking at ways that people are going to be replaced in some of these jobs that created who I am, right? From working multiple different fast food companies to whatever else, right? To working in the backcountry of Yellowstone, taking groups up there, like all of these things just really shaped who I am. And with my kids, I'm always looking at, how do I create their space to become who, to decide who they want to be.
It's hard too, because then you understand. Well, but for you, I guess you have a broad array of options there to look at. But I feel like sometimes it's with the way that social media and everything's going today, it's like hard to understand the concept of what they see.
Yeah.
You think?
Yeah, it is. And social media,
brain develops,
right. And social media is just a snapshot usually of the best parts of someone's life, right? And it's so easy to get caught up in this idea that they're living what I'm not,
or the opposite, right? Then you have this fear propaganda on the other side of the spectrum, and be like, oh,
yeah,
right.
So, yeah, definitely an interesting space we live in, and the way, and we talked about this a little before the show, but the way that AI is now stepping into the space of creativity in ways that it never has before. And a lot of creators are wondering where that's gonna take them. And I wonder too, like, it's like my son, who is 16, just wrote his first novel.
Okay.
And he's about to publish it. It's like 350 pages or something. It's a horror thriller, right? And he intentionally did it without the use of any AI.
Smart.
Right? And I look at it and I'm like, this is great. It's phenomenal. But I also see the people that are using AI to enhance their work, and they're being able to do incredible things. And I don't know where that's going to go. I do think there will always be a group, and it might get smaller and smaller, where humans prefer to interact with fully human content.
Yeah, like when you want to buy real, like, handmade stuff, I think that's the same.
Yeah.
Which I feel like, okay, so the broad spectrum of things there, it's I don't know if apparently it'll weed out some of the people that don't have as much tenacity or isn't able to keep the iron in the fire. But I hope it's going to make that version of it more not, I shouldn't say affordable. What's the word I'm looking for? Like, more valuable.
Accessibility, I think, is huge. Like, even the artists that have been artists for decades are coming to me and saying, look, we're being able to do things in hours now that took us months before. I was with an artist a couple months ago, and we sat down and he played on his piano something that he had written, both the words and the music to, and it was beautiful. But we took it and we put it into a music app, and it took the level up to production value in minutes, right? And we're still looking at it going, okay, so how do we do this now? You don't want to put this on you don't want to upload this to Spotify with the rest of your music, because the rest of your music didn't have any involvement of AI, and now all of a sudden you have a song that has some AI in it. How do you classify it differently?
Yeah, and right now you could probably hear it a little bit with some things, right? Maybe not music, but like that. I noticed a lot with like clips.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
hear in clips.
There are definitely things you can recognize. I think that like Suno is the music app that I think is just blowing things out of the water. Uh, Nana Banana is fantastic with creating video clips, and it's just constantly getting better and better.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what that means for us because, and I mean, going back a little bit to origin, everything about creating with others is built on this shared belief of
Mm-hmm.
myths. And it's also built on this trust that you can trust those things to be true. And when we lose that, because AI can make anything look true,
Yeah.
I don't know what that does for
Yeah.
connection.
No, it's why exactly. And then we're on the brink of connection. It's speaking of origin, I want to talk about the connection too, but what version or so like going through your life, where do you feel like some of it was like a destiny that you fell upon like your steps, or do you feel like that your curiosity led you there? Because you've done so many different things, and for me too, I know it's a combination of ADHD and everyone sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
like, or seasonal work or things, but they led you to another spot because you would be somebody that I think a lot of people would consider successful, but you're also doing it in in an artistic way to where you enjoy what you do for the most part, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So do you feel like that there was some of it's destiny, some of it was like a
I love that question. I do think some of it, and it depends on how we define destiny, right? For me, we create our own realities. And when we can realize that our lives are defined by the stories we're telling ourselves, we can really shift where we are.
mm-hmm.
When I was very young, I think I was 4, I remember thinking that I wanted to make lots of money and have no fame. And the reason I wanted those two things, and I don't know why I knew this even at that time, right? But the reason I wanted those two things is because it felt like money brought freedom and fame took it away, right? And to create a life as a ghostwriter, there's absolutely like, I can't think of a more non-fame role
Yeah.
than standing behind the celebrity and writing the book for them and quoting myself with their name and like everything else, right? So I do see some of that has been guided throughout, but there's a big part of it for me that is just every moment, everything that I step into, I look at it and go, what did I like about this? What did I not like about this? And every job that I've had has been that way too. I love this part of it, not this part of it, the overlap part of it. Maybe I tried this job or I tried this job and I move. And so it was this evolution that wasn't planned. I didn't ever plan to get to the point that I was writing books for other people. And that's not the end of my journey either,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like the way things are moving now, like I'm looking at other things to move into. I will say like, people often come to me and they're like, tell me about some of your biggest successes that you, and they'll say, they'll frame it in the terms of, tell me about the things you planned that came true that were your biggest successes. And when I sit there, I'm like, wow, my biggest successes almost without exception came from failure,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I had an executive role in a company where things kind of moved in a direction that didn't feel good to be there. And because I left that role is because it is the cause of the success that I had after that, right? Uh, Same with my marriage. When my marriage came apart, it felt like the biggest failure I'd been. And 12 months later, I was sitting in a room surrounded by people that none of whom I would have known had I continued to stay in my marriage successfully,
And that goes
right?
back to sometimes that goes back to like the archetypal societal like construct we have and the ego story that we paint,
Yeah,
or if you ever read any of Eckhart Tolle or Eckhart Tolle's books, The Pain Body.
absolutely. Yep.
And I catch I'm in between that right now. It's like my new life is here, my old life is there, and I'm like, you get survivor's guilt and all these other things along the way. But it's interesting because I wonder if I'm sure that plays into it too, right?
Absolutely.
And then your ego or that pain body wants to hold on to this old version of you, and it's when shame cycles can start. But that's you
And,
probably are one of those people
and
that are able to.
I mean, I think I can do it better than some, but I think we all deal with this
Yeah.
every day, right? But it is like I often look at my life and I'm like, wow, is it more important to me to hold the story that I've had or to create the life that I want?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think there's this pull between like, I want to have, and, and I don't, for me, like I really try and live in a space of not being victim, but there are parts of it that you're like, I like the identity of me that holds on to this part of being victim in this thing that got me where I am, rather than allowing that to release so they can create something greater.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think the more that we can kind of release what we've been holding on to, and the more that you're able to unlearn your story and move into a different space, it's Ben Hardy who I first heard this from, but he said, it is not your past that determines your present, but your present that determines your past. And the premise of that is so powerful because everything we do, everything we believe we're seeing it through our own current lens. So we can't see anything future or past except through our current lens. And when you realize that your past is being defined by the way you're looking at it.
100%.
It just it blows the doors off of what you can create.
Like you said, you have to be sometimes you got to be the author, the actor, and the philosopher all wrapped into one, and producer and all that fun stuff. But yeah, being able to look at your life, what's the good and the bad? What was this? What did I learn? What am I learning now? How did I get these? And because I feel like, especially in our culture nowadays, it's been like that for a long time. It's so easy to see the bad in day-to-day life. But then you go into you see these these tribes in Africa and stuff like that. They don't even have a word for depression.
Right.
And it's just the comparison and this, that, and the other. And, oh, I should have done this yesterday, or the what ifs, like that's how I look at the what ifs. I'm like, what if I would have done this and I would have invested in the Bitcoin or this or whatever, something silly, or AI sooner. And then it would have done this. It's like, yeah, what if you would have gotten into a car accident? You'd be dead too. So it's like both sides. You could have the what ifs, but like you said,
there's always the what ifs, and there's always the, I'm a big believer that if you are looking for something, you'll find it. Right.
It's like the red car theory.
Yeah. Right. And it just like the things that you're looking for will come out. One example is over this last year, I've released about 25 pounds, and everybody's like, what's your secret? And I've tried to sit down and go, okay, what have I changed? And really the main change that I made was to wake up every day believing that I was more fit.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And every day I wake up, I'm like, I'm getting a little taller and a little healthier.
Right.
And the taller, I'm still working on that. But there's this element of every action I take now is based off of the belief that I'm holding in my mind. Right. So I see a piece of cake and I'm like, that doesn't even sound good right now because that's not fitting with the belief that I'm holding.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I feel like too with fitness, because there's a lot of like fit shaming out there too. It's like everybody has these negative projections of why you should eat the cake. Just because they don't feel bad. And I was like, you just want the mouth pleasure at the beginning. You don't actually want to swallow the cake. You just want to taste it.
Spit it out.
Right?
Spit it out.
Like when I used to do physique competition, some people will say this is like that's an eating disorder. I was like, no, I still ate fine. It was just like I would taste it. And I just throw it away. I'm like, that's all I wanted. I don't want to swallow it. It never made you feel good afterwards. Yeah. Maybe for like 40 minutes and then the insulin dump and you're like,
yeah. I've tried to, over the last probably 15 years, I've gone on this journey of trying to tie my taste desires to how my body feels after the fact, right? Rather than to take that hit in the mouth of the sugar. It's like, wow, this Brussels sprout, like a couple hours later, I feel really good. So that's a taste that I want to desire because of the result that I get from
100%. Yeah. And then and even coming from an aspect of like nutrition and, that's my background, 26 certificates, the whole 9 yards. And even for me going to like processed proteins and things like that in this last year, because I gave myself the story that I didn't have enough time or whatever. So it gave me an excuse to go get a protein bar because it tastes good. And I noticed the difference between live, real food and different colored foods, the spectrum of food and the way your body feels compared to processed protein powders and things like that too. All that's real. Like,
Yeah.
and so not only the story, what you're watching, your nervous system, eating, chewing more, and appreciating what you have rather than like, because no one eats a brownie slow, do they? It's like, oh, I don't. Maybe there are people out there, but they're not eating it like a goat.
Yeah,
But
you're talking
Brussels
about yourself than anybody else.
so yeah, me, yeah. But you know what I mean? Like a lot of people, like they usually eat.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, it's about what works for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like it's so easy to get caught up in 1,000 different directions you're being pulled. But when you start to see things like even the food pyramid, which, I grew up as a huge part of like, this is how you should eat.
Yeah.
I look at it now and I'm like, that is totally upside down of what
Yep.
it should be. And it was all marketing.
Thank you, sugar propaganda. The
Right.
Big Sugar. That's who did that one.
And
Kellogg.
And I think one of the interesting elements I see today is that more people than ever are interested in being healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And it is more difficult than ever to do because of everything that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
You go to a convenience store and there is nothing, like there's literally nothing in there that's good for your body.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
And how do you take it and have convenience and still feel healthy?
You go to a convenience store, gas station, boiled eggs. That's what you get. Because there's all like I said, even in grocery stores, you got to stay on the outside perimeter. Don't go to the inside aisles.
Yep.
But getting back to creativity and the function of everything, where this is something the question comes up. So for you, you're going on your journey. You've done many things. You talk about your son and your kids. What are some of the factors that you see with AI technology, these sort of dopamine hits, and where things are going? And what do you do to make sure that you still give them like that old style of what you came up with? Is there a blend there that you said you'd give them the opportunity to create themselves, but what are some of the factors that you utilize as a dad to be able to give them some of the old?
Yeah, I think you're going with some deep questions here. For me, being a parent is more about holding guardrails while I let them develop who they want to be,
Mhm.
right? And when it comes to creativity, like my son came to me and he's like, I want to do comic books. I'm like, fantastic. Let's do comic books. Let's talk about what you're doing, what you're writing, what you're building. And he wrote a whole series of comic books when he was 9 years old. And then he started, like, to me, I would look at it and be like, hey, I love this. What do you think about this? Where can this move? And just giving him the ability and the room to feel safe to create.
Mm-hmm.
And he took that and he started taking television shows, and he would watch a show, an episode of a series that he really liked, and he would write that out as a script, right? Which is more difficult to do than most people realize, to watch 30 minutes of TV and then put that in words. And then he would take it and he's like, okay, now I want to create, like, one of his favorite shows is The Walking Dead. And so then he's like, I want to write fan fiction, right? He didn't use that term for it, but that's really what it was. He's like, I want to take what I've been writing about, the actual things going on, and create these storylines that are outside of that box. And then a year into that, he was like, you know what? I really think that I want to create my own world because I feel restricted by the world that was created here. And that's when he started writing his own book. And he's gone through, it's been about 2 years he's been writing this, where he's shifted up what it is about. He's learned about writing. He digs in and actually goes and does his own research, because, he'll come to me with questions and I'll be like, this is a brilliant question. Let's talk about what I know and what I can add, but then let's go see what you find for yourself and then what works for you. And to me, that's probably one of the most powerful elements of creativity, is just this space to make mistakes. And
it's like a seasoning cabinet.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And one of those, which I think a lot of parents did, including mine, and there was never, I don't have like any hard feelings about this, but we often will go to our kids or whoever and we'll say, my son is so smart, my son is so creative, my son is so, whatever term you want to put to it. And one of the things that we found is that if you give them those labels, often it becomes almost a restrictor to actually be creative because
Get a
they're
little.
like, I've got to live up to the,
Yeah.
I got to live up to the hype. Right. And so if you can focus on things like, I love the effort you put into this. Like you got an A, that took a lot of effort to make that happen. Right. Not you got an A because you're so smart, because then what happens? They get a B and they're like, well,
I'm not smart
I
enough.
must really not be smart. Right.
Yeah.
And
Dude, that's brilliant.
and,
That's good.
and so if you can focus on what are the activities you actually care about them doing. And with my son and his writing, like I just want him to get in and explore himself, explore his own thinking.
Do you give him the idea of harsh critics at all? Like, do you say this may be what you see from X, Y, and Z?
Yeah, absolutely. But a lot of it comes into when he's ready and when he asks for it.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, okay, Dad, I would love for you to read this chapter and really critique it.
Yeah, as a
Right.
as a profession.
And I will, and I'll be like, look, an apocalyptic book is great, but one of the reasons people like to read about those dystopian worlds is because it changes our sense of reality and space, but almost without exception, you continue to have hope. Like for a while, his book had no hope. It was like, dude, like, why would I keep going in this scenario? Because there's like no hope. So, things like you want to be able to,
Sounds like a Russian novel.
you want to be able to give your reader hope, right? Because we want hope, right? When we run out of hope, then really what's left for us, right? So creating that space where the reader can be in. So we have those types of conversations, right? But I feel like if you allow people to pursue what they're interested in, they're going to do it better and harder and faster than you could ever push them to do it. I like to think of it in terms of a horse. Like I would rather have a horse that I have to pull back the reins and re-guide them rather than a horse that is like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like that makes a lot of sense. And then you just got to find the happy medium, right? Like you said, have those guardrails up. That's wild. I'm sure too with the story that he's writing now, there's probably some times that probably blows you away a little bit where you're like, whoa.
Oh yeah.
This chapter, I forget this is my son's book.
I'll read his stuff and I'm like, wow. Like, because he has not been, he didn't grow up being the heavy reader. Like I've got a daughter and a son that love to read like I do, right? But this one was never the big reader.
I was like that. I didn't know my mom and the teachers knew, but I would write stories. I'd just make them up and then turn them in for book reports. But since they were good, or decent back then, they were like, we always knew. When I was like in third grade, I thought I was pulling over on my parents, and everybody was like, no, they just, anyways. But yeah, so I had to learn. It's a skill to learn sometimes, and I'm sure when he sees the rest of the family too, it's like, oh, this is important.
Yeah.
Hopefully, but
yeah, I've got a daughter in her early 20s that has helped me edit a number of books, and she's always been an avid reader like me. Like I couldn't even keep up with her. I would try and read a lot of the same books she was reading so that we could have this common ground to talk about.
My actually my ex, one of my best friends, I did that too. Like that's how I got into Ayn Rand and like a bunch like Atlas Shrugged and
Atlas
yeah,
Shrugged
I was like
great,
heavy books like dystopian novels, like that's all like was it Animal Farm and like different, like I got into it. I was like, what are you reading? And then she likes stuff like astrophysics and stuff, and I was like, all right, so I just get into Neil deGrasse Tyson and a bunch of other stuff. But that's cool that you do that too, because then you find common ground.
Yeah,
you learn.
But then with my son, like he didn't read hardly at all, and so when I would read his writing, I would be like, it would blow me away some of the times that he would use story and create story that I'm like, this is good. Like people go to writing school and never get here, and you're like a teenager doing this. And for me, that's a good example of the path always doesn't have to be the path that we think it needs to be, right? People will say, if you want to be an author, well, here are the steps you should take to be an author. You know what? Like you don't need to follow that same path. Like move, go through the circles of what feels good to you, and and build for yourself.
Right, somewhere in between. You got to go through the chaos and stumble a bunch in the process. Because I feel like I don't know. I didn't go to college for art, but I feel like there are, especially with some of the professors and things like that. It's like some of them weren't the best writers or the best artists.
Yeah,
They understand like the principles of it, but then it's hard for you to be captivating or free, and then people develop similar tendencies.
I remember I took in one of the art classes I took in college was an oil painting class. And in oil painting, often you start with the background layers and you move forward until you create the front, right? And I did this painting of the little engine that could. And it was just this phenomenal painting for me. Like, I thought it was great.
Yeah, that's good.
But it had this mountain range, and it had the engine coming over towards you, coming up over this ridge, this beautiful blue engine. But I had built the whole premise on the sky being these reds and orange colors as it's coming up over the hill in the sunrise. And I loved the contrast of it.
I was going to say contrast colors, right?
It was one of my favorite paintings. But I took that into the professor at the time, and he said, no, there's no such thing as a red sunrise. The sunrise has to be blue, right? And instead of like owning what my creative space, I went in and changed it for him. And I tried to paint the background sky as the last thing instead of the first thing around a blue engine. And it turned into this painting that like I still have it, but I just like it doesn't resonate with me anymore because I went down a different path. And for anybody watching, there is such a thing.
Did that help
sunrise?
Did that help become a catalyst for you?
Yeah, it did, because like now every time that I see a red or an orange sunrise, I'm like, remember to trust myself. Yeah.
So that's great.
Yeah.
No, I love that. But you're saying I was going to say there's red sunrises.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So every time I see one now, it's a
Yeah.
reminder to like step down my path.
Exactly. And stay within that range. But also at the same time, you're like, I love it, but also like, damn painting. And he's like, hey, there's no such thing as a little engine that could. Like, why are you worried about my sunrise?
right. Like
It's a talking train.
It's what myths do we want to believe in? Hold on to, right? Like, it's like
this engine has a brain. Like, sorry for my red sky, sir. But yeah, it is that. It's the bitterness of college sometimes, or high school, and some of those artists. In high school, luckily, I had a teacher. She had my parents sign off. So when I used to draw, like I used to be a pretty decent artist back in the day, and she would just put, because I was such a hypocrite of my own work and perfectionist, that she was just like, can I just have all your work you do in here? And then she would just send them off to things. But luckily I had somebody, but she was also very like, she was very critical, but also like could help you out along the way too. So I'm glad I've seen the opposite side sometimes. But.
Yeah, that is like mentors and those that help you find your path, to me, are some of the best helps in your life. And when a mentor can step in and be like, let me help you find your path instead of vicariously living my path through you, because I feel like I made wrong choices, right? Which I think a lot of parents do this, right? They're like, oh my gosh, I didn't go to college. You're going to go to college because I made that mistake. When that might not be the right answer for them, right? And so finding the right mentors, I think, is so powerful. Moving you to where you want to be.
And it goes both sides, right? You have the people you learn from that you don't want to be. And I've had plenty of those in my life. And then you have the mentors that are successful in the field or create the energy or whatever that is that you want to emit. Because I take with you and a bunch of like my new friend group, our friend group, I take a lot of inspiration from each and every one of you. So like one of my favorite things about you is you always find a way for everybody to have fun, and you have fun while people are having fun. And I love that. It's not just like you're the center, you have fun, regardless, you're going to have fun, but you try to make sure that everybody is having fun or get out of their bubble. And I love that. Like I see it.
I love that you see that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's one of my favorite things about you, because you're like, you'll look around and see who's not having fun and not like force them, but figure out a way to let them in and feel comfortable.
Yeah. And
I think it's a huge plus. And for me, I'm always like, oh, I need to be more of my version of that, you know?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I have, this is part of an origin story as well, because for me, when I look at life now, it's about where am I spending my heartbeats, because we only get a finite number of heartbeats. And if I am not in a space where I am loving that moment, then why am I in that space? I spent a long time in my life spending my heartbeats on the hope of future potential heartbeats. And a lot of those future heartbeats never materialized. And all I ended up doing was spending my current heartbeats in thinking of a different space, right?
It's
And
an energetic heart arrhythmia.
yeah, and so it's like, what heartbeats can I pull into the present and actually love this heartbeat? And to me, when people ask, tell me a definition of your best day, and my response is, the definition of my best day is the day where I lived every heartbeat in the present, right? Instead of in the past or in the future, but I was present in every heartbeat. And some people are like, that's a lame answer. I'm like, is it? Because that to me is the most full, most colorful, most beautiful life. And I love to bring that to others whenever I can.
Yeah, every morning for that red sky, right?
Yeah. Wake up.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, and that's like you said, it goes back to like creating that perspective and, going back to using the feathered pen in the ink
Mm-hmm.
and take time to make it happen rather than just like bam and have it on. And it's hard too with individuals, especially. I mean, we all go to networking events and things like that. So I feel like a lot of people ask questions to compare. They don't really care what they don't want your substance. They just want to know how they compare to you. Like,
Right.
what's your best day?
Right.
And I'm gonna compare it to my best day internally, but they don't want to.
Yep.
Don't want to know what made your sauce.
They're in the space of wanting to have answers that conform to the reality that they want. I often say, like, people often talk about authenticity, and they're like, I want to be surrounded by authentic people.
Mm-hmm.
And usually my response to them is like, no, you don't. You want to be surrounded by people who are authentically like you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't want someone who is authentically different than you, because that doesn't fit for you.
Right.
And when you can really step into a space of allowing people to be authentically them, it's beautiful. And then you can start to realize that, everybody has heard that you're the sum of the 5 people that you're around the most. But I don't think a lot of people understand what that is. And going back to earlier in our conversation when we talked about your beliefs, like, you will find what you're looking for. Like, if you are in a group of people where none of them have made 6 figures and they're all dealing with the same types of issues, those are the issues that will start to be prevalent to you, right? And when you get in different situations, like I was kind of feeling down about a couple of things about a month ago, and then I went on a trip with several friends, and we drove in this van down to St. George, and everyone in the vehicle was doing $1 million deals. They were doing all these different types of things. And it was just like, oh my gosh, I was down last week because I wasn't surrounding myself with the right people.
That's funny. I think I could see that van in my head. I think I see that. I know what you're talking about. But, right. And then did you guys go down by the river? Through the table. Yeah. But it is that. And it's funny you bring that up or it's funny we're talking about that because I was listening to my buddy and he lives a life that I don't want to live, but I appreciate that he's living it.
Mm-hmm.
And because there's a lot of substances and things like that in there, but there's a lot of things happening for him. And I love that they're happening for him. Sounds exhausting for me, but it was the same day. I'm like, man, who is my group like that? But then Heather invites me and we go on that hike. And I'm like, here's my kind of people.
Right.
People that are fitness oriented, that might stay out late, but they also have a bedtime. They have different, like they don't need a this or a that to be them, if that makes sense. Yeah. Like there's not always a substance or caffeine or whatever it is to be themselves. And
I was there on that hike with you.
Yeah.
And everybody was super fit. It was like the whole collected group without me had a total probably of 10% body fat.
Yeah.
A combined 10% body
fat.
With
you, we were at 12.
And I'm like, I'm way up in the... I'm up.
Got abs now, though.
I do.
No,
I get a little bit of abs. Yeah, they're still sitting over a layer of fat.
Yeah, that's okay. It's winter. We need it.
But
being a little body fat during winter,
being in a space with people who are doing better than you, who are moving in the direction you want to be in, it literally changes the way you see the world.
No, 100%. And you have a very interesting viewpoint on the world because you have you have one hand in art and creativity, and you have another hand in AI, which is another form. So, I mean, I feel like if anybody has a version of Jean Connor, like right now you're on the front of that Harley.
The team on top.
Yeah, right.
Following me, like, is he working with me or against
Right.
me?
That's why I always say thank you to ChatGPT.
Yeah.
It's like what's that actor's he's a comedian. Dang it, he's from like the 2000s. Very eccentric. I just said every comedian there. Dang it. He has like the pockmarks on his face. Anyways, he was in a couple movies. He's Dane Cook.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pockmarks. That's kind of mean, but yeah, I just so Dane Cook, he talks about like the Butterfinger. When there's that weird guy in the office, and he's always, he gives him a candy bar. And then when that guy goes to shoot up the office, he like walks by Dane Cook, and he was one of the one guys that was nice to him, and he's like, "You're okay." As he's hiding under the table, he's like,
Yeah.
"Thank you for the Snickers," and then just keeps going. But that's how I feel with AI. If a lot of people are mean to AI, I'm like, "Thank you, AI." He's like, "You're welcome, Justin." I was like, "Just remember me, please."
Yeah. I think this brings up a point about AI, which I think is super important to understand right now, and that is that there used to be this adage of it's not, or it's who you know, right? And I used to always take that one step further and say it's not who you know, it's who knows you.
Mm-hmm.
And we live now in an age where the most important who to know you is AI. So I would suggest to everyone that is trying to build anything to make sure that they're putting their information in spaces that it can be pulled into the awareness of these large language models, so that as we move into a space where everyone is looking for answers there, you want you to be an answer that they find in that system, because we've gone from being a search engine that has all of these potential answers, and if you're on the first couple of pages, then that you're doing pretty good, to now you get one answer, right? AI has this suggested answer at the top, and the percentage of people that even go below that is almost zero. So being known by AI will help create, your own story.
It's funny you say that, because like for me, I just want to be the best version of myself. There's no competition for me. I don't necessarily need to be Joe Rogan or anything. I just love talking to people.
Yeah.
So that's why I do this. But there is a Justin Sloan that's an author, and for me, I'm like, I just gotta have more followers. I just want to get above that Justin Sloan. He's an author. I see him because if I put in Justin Sloan, I don't pop up, which may be a good thing. Maybe I should go the Ghostwriter route, but I'm already here.
And we're here. Tell you, if you Google chip hopper, you get a page of these big bins that you put wood chips and little images of me sparkling.
Yeah, I was gonna say that inside of the wood chipper, the hopper of the chipper. Yeah, that's fun. Oh man, but yeah, it's just that thing. I was like, he has X amount of subscribers on YouTube. That's my goal for now. And it's not a high number, but yeah, he's an author. I seen him. He does like fantasy fiction, I think, or something like that. He's gonna be a great guy.
Yeah.
Good for him. But yeah, I just was like, I don't need to be the most famous guy in the world, but maybe I should be the most famous Justin Sloan.
Yeah, I mean, but that's part of the journey you get to decide, right?
Yeah.
And going back to origin stories, I think one of the most powerful things to realize about origin stories is you can take your life and make any origin story out of it you want. Be whatever you want to be.
And for people like us, that's something a lot of people tell me too, is to write a book from my colorful past. But for people like us too, we've lived 20, 30 lives. Like most people only stick with one of those jobs. I sent my dad my resume, and it wasn't even all the way up to date to now. And he was like, I've had 6 jobs my whole life.
Yeah.
He's like, that's wild to look at that. And I was like, that's not even horrible.
And it's a fascinating trend that's happening. Like your grandfather probably worked 1 or 2 jobs. Your father probably worked 4 to 6 jobs. And, we probably are on the high end of our age. Well, we're in different age ranges, but we're on that high end. But now, like, it's even 4 to 6 years is like the typical, right? And as we move more into AI, like it's going to be a couple of years that you're going to have to unlearn and relearn something new, which makes the whole education system upside down, because you can't go to school for 4 to 6 years, or 9 years.
Yeah.
Some days.
Yeah. 32 years.
So a lot of people go to school for 9 years. Yeah,
But
they're
you
called
probably,
doctors.
yeah, you're probably always in school though, right? Because you're like,
They're always learning.
because there was different forms of animation. Because I remember my uncle, which he's like a Rick from Rick and Morty, so smart.
Mhm.
Like if there wasn't a certain car part or something like that, he'd go get a mill. Like he had a storage unit that had a mill and all these things in there. And he seen problems in a video game, so he learned how to code the video game and then send in the issues to the video game, and then became a developer for them while he was doing tree service work. He was an Army Ranger, blah blah blah. So, but anyways, so he gave me my first computer parts, all the pieces. He's like, if you could put this together, it's yours. So he'd come check on me and say, nope, that's not how you do that. And then walk away, and whatever. So anyways, I feel like a lot of people, you see it in 2020, people don't know how to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something you've done plenty of times. And I think that that's why you're always like, oh, I see my exit in this. So I have to go to this next thing. And then I have to go to this next thing. Oh, it's back. Speaking of adaptation, is you probably had different levels of animation you had to do, different levels of writing. And then you're always adding something more to your pod, right? And that's where the animation comes in. You see the layers of animation. You're like, oh, this is a new type of animation. There's this. So now I'm going to add this to my animation. Now they got the CGI thing or this or AI. So now I'm going to learn how to do this. I think a lot of people don't have that creative flow, and they only have a certain amount of bandwidth to be able to learn new things. But people like ourselves are overly curious.
Yeah. I do think that we all have a limited bandwidth to learn things, right? And you have to be able to, we have in society, especially Western society, there's this additive bias. And there's this example that they use where they hand people this Lego castle, and it's got one foot on it and it's got a missing foot on it. And they say, okay, make this level. And almost without exception, people add a leg where you can just as easily remove the leg that's there and have it be level.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have this additive mentality that we add things. So I love that you brought that up, because for me, when I look at my life, I'm like, what can I subtract? And right now, if you believe in this stuff, whatever, we're coming out of the year of the snake and moving into the year of the horse. And I think one of the best questions I've been asking people, and people have been asking, is what are you shedding from 2025 to be able to move into 2026? And I did this, when my marriage came apart, and I'm not recommending you get unmarried, right? And I'm not Louis C.K., but if you want to watch some great stuff,
I love how you said it like that too. Like it's like the unalived, like that's the unmarried.
But I'm just saying, like, there were things that were in my life at that time that didn't allow me to hold what I hold now. And I think that as we can allow things to move out of our life, that creates that space for newness. And it's the stories we hold on to. You talked about adaptability. To me, one of the greatest strengths right now is our ability to unlearn. And unlearning is something that is still uniquely human. Like, you go to these large language models, it is very hard to have them unlearn anything. And I think it's one of the most powerful things about us being human is our ability to learn something, unlearn it, and learn something new. And the more you can allow yourself to not have your story have to be true, the more you're going to have success.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and then I had a vision of, for me, in these last few years, especially this last year's, like, I don't know if you've ever bred or had reptiles or anything like that. So sometimes the skin doesn't want to come off all the way. So you let the snake go in water, and the water kind of loosens it up. So, and then that skin will come off a little easier. And that's what it just like the download or whatever you want to call that, like, clicked of, like, this year was more of the water of pulling off the old skin to be able
there you go.
to be the new person, And it's like, there in life is lessons. Like, they can be lessons or they can be hardships, and I think it just depends on the way you look at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, going back to perspective. Adaptability is something, I think it's a skill that you can create and you can lean into, but there's so many people you realize now that don't want to think for themselves, and they just want a paycheck, or they just want this, and they just want unfortunately, I feel like we live in a culture that are chasing feelings rather than chasing purpose. We're like
Man,
being a something.
I love that.
It's dopamine rather than serotonin or oxytocin, or people don't hug like we did, or we do. And that's something I had to teach myself from my friends. It's like, oh, I'm a shallow hugger. I don't like a shallow hug, like, because I didn't say I love you to my parents for a long time, and I was bitter in myself. And then I had to relearn how to hug in my late 20s and early 30s. I'll be 37 in March, and I'm like,
Yeah, it is. So it's interesting that most of us, by the time we're age 7, have pretty much created our programming. And we spend the rest of our lives allowing our 7-year-old selves to drive our car or ship, whatever you want to call it. And when it comes
I need
to
a ship now in this.
yeah,
To
exactly.
be honest, like
When it,
space yacht.
when it comes to like unlearning and adaptability, there's such a power in being able to say, okay, I'm having this feeling come up, and not shaming it, but just listening to it and leaning into it. I talk about this on other shows and things, but the whole concept of I'm feeling a feeling, I don't like it, so I'm going to try and push it away, is so much less effective than saying I'm feeling this feeling. Oh, I wonder why I'm feeling this feeling. One that I worked with for a long time was jealousy, right? And when I would feel that in a certain space, instead of saying, "Oh, jealousy isn't something I should feel," or "We need to change this because I'm feeling jealousy," it was like, "Well, hello, jealousy. Good to see you today. What brings you around?" And
Breath is smelling mighty nice today. Jealousy.
oh,
Right? Yeah.
here's a myth.
Rotten tooth.
But the whole idea that you can look at it and shift your belief system is such a powerful element of being human. And if anything, that's the takeaway that I would give, is just like, when you see something in your life, to ask the questions: is it true? Is it really true? And then how does that affect my life to have it be true?
Mhm.
Right. And the more you can take that apart and just step back and be like, I'm feeling this from a pattern that I'm in, but do I need to stay in that pattern? Do I need to like crave this cookie, or do I need to like have this attached relationship, in this way? And, I think asking questions is one of the best ways to shift your life, and to realize that it doesn't matter who it is. Nobody has a clue, right? I've worked with the biggest names in the world, sitting down, being, in essence, when I write someone's book, I become both their ghostwriter and their therapist. And
well, that too, because you're doing shadow work for him.
Yeah,
So
right.
Turning into Carl Jung.
And they'll be like, this is the best therapy session I've ever had. And I'm like, well, now I should be charging double therapy.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
but the interesting thing about it is that it doesn't matter who I work with. That when it comes down to it, we all have these same basic core beliefs. Yet so many of us look at the person on the other side of it and say, they've got it figured out. Why can't I figure it out? There must be something wrong with me. And the truth is, the people that are successful, greatness is a choice. And it is just taking that next step.
Right. Being ready isn't a feeling. It's a choice.
Yeah.
It's huge. And a lot of people never get to the opportunity to go in those rooms, right? And they don't see the vulnerability or the deepest dialogue and thoughts and like these origin stories of the individual. And I think that's a huge blessing. Not to, put that on you too, but you get to see the deepest areas of these individuals, and I think that's huge.
And that's one of the reasons, going back to the very start of this conversation, creating environments where people can come together and change the way they see the world, have fun, whatever you want to call it. I love putting celebrities in the same room with people who have never thought outside of the world that they currently live in. And, I do these events where we'll have a big limo that holds 20 people, and we'll have people intentionally just park a half mile down the street so we can bring them in and out, right? And then we have people dress up in whatever their inner self wants to dress up as. And people, every time we do an event like this, some people will come up and be like, I've never ridden in a limo. This was amazing. I've never been to a party where people dressed up like this, right? And it's like to be able to open people up to being able to see the world differently is one of the most beautiful things. Like, and for me, it's one of the things I love the most is when someone can help me see the world differently than I'm currently seeing it. In Wicked, I'm going to slaughter the line because I didn't read it beforehand, but the show and the movie in Wicked, it's, there's a line about, like the character will say, "You don't have to lie to me." And the response is, "I'm not lying. I am choosing to see it differently." Right. And to me, the ability to see it differently than we have, that's what it's all made of.
100%.
Truth is in the paradox. Right?
Exactly. And having awareness and empathy, and not necessarily sympathy, but having empathy, knowing everybody else has bad days too, and not, wrapping it around like your version of what they should be doing or anything like that. Like going back to The New Earth from Eckhart Tolle or Tolle, whatever you want. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, honestly, but I've heard it both ways. But he talks about like not raising your kids or not raising other people through your own ego. And I think that goes through everything in life. I mean, apparently, if somebody asks for your guidance, something like that, give them your perspective, like your son, but also being able to navigate more freely and openly like water instead of being shifting through life like concrete. Eventually you're going to fall and shatter, but with water, it could regroup.
Yeah. I had a friend I don't remember what day today is, a couple days ago.
Thursday, the 18th?
Yeah. But we got together for an event. We were talking about, as happens in many of the things that I do, he gets into deep conversation about things. And he brought up an interesting concept that he said, the potential you see in others is what you would do if you were in the situation you think they're in.
Oh, very true. That's wild.
And that just allows you to go like, instead of me trying to create your potential, because that means I'm just trying to create for you what I would do in your situation. If instead I can come to you and say, here are the tools I used to figure out how to move to the next step. Right. And I do that with my kids. Instead of saying, you need to go to college, you need to do this, you need to do this, I'm like, okay, where do you want to move to? Here are some tools that can help you figure out how to move there. And then it releases my potential for them and allows them to be where they are and to move where they want to move.
It's a big thing too, is like, even with my client, I don't have any kids, but with clients and things like that, is like, it's going within the same thing. So these are my tools. Let me help you forge your own tools for your tool bag, or for your, for your sheath for war, whatever that is, like your, whatever archetype you're going for there. And then it's the same thing as like some of my clients like are weird that I don't count their reps. And I was like, I'm not going to be there for you. I'll make sure you don't go way over, but I'm not going to count your reps out loud for you, because you're going to need to be able to do that. So it's that, being able to help them forge their own tools, because I don't want to be I want to be your friend and coach, but I don't want to do that forever, because you need to be able to handle this for yourself, be able to sharpen your own sword, be able to go out there, fight your own battles. Right.
I love that.
Yeah.
I do that with my kids. I don't clean their room. Like, right. It's like, I mean, my youngest is now 16, but it's like, this is, how do you want to define the space that you're in? Right. And give them the ability to do that. And as long as they're not going to kill themselves, then I try and give a lot of leeway to it. And I allow them to have their own voice. I always would tell my kids, look, it's okay to say no to me, as long as you can explain why you're saying no. And as long as you accept that until you're 18, if we can't come to an agreement, then it has to be my way.
Yeah.
because it's like my responsibility is as your parent. But I don't want to make your decisions for you. I'm only going to make them for you if you can't show me why you're wanting to make a different
But
one.
I think that's huge, because then it's way more logical. It's not a dictatorship. It's like then they can come to you more because they feel, even on the drive here, I was wondering how I could be better at making sure my nephews later on in the future are comfortable with coming to me with things that I wouldn't ask my parents about.
Yeah.
Because it was a scare tactic. If it wasn't the right answer, wasn't the right question, It wasn't the stand up and it was the shut up and sit down mentality, unfortunately. And you want to give them a safe space, but also know that there is the long arm of the law if necessary.
Yeah. To me, one of my best definitions of love is giving people space to be and grow into what they want to be. Yeah.
And that's something that like you and a few other people have helped me understand, like Rachel, Emilio, people like that too, that are just, I don't see judgment out of them, and they just love you for who you are, but also give you the inspiration and ability to be able to help you create whatever it is. Or I can come to you and I know I'm going to get usually a non-judgmental thing or whatever that is. So I love that and that's a big thing for this new chapter in my life too, to be able to do for other people. Like with my nephew too, he's big into video games and things like that. And I'm like, I don't know. Sometimes my other nephew that's older than me, my nephew, the one I'm talking about is my sister's son. I'm like, dude, can you like hop on a 3-way call with me sometimes? Because he's talking about Fortnite and stuff, and like maybe just like help me process this stuff, or whatever. So I try to learn more about video games and things like that. But or like if he's like, I want to be a YouTube creator or this, I'm like, yeah, dude, let me know. Like get a business plan together, and I'll help invest into what you need to. I'll be your first investor for your business, And those are those things where they're like, oh, that's a thing. I'm like, yeah, have your dad. We could create a business proposal and show me what you're going to do. And then maybe we can invest into it. Like those type of things, like because you can only love somebody the way you learn how to, but like asking questions and stuff like that, I think are huge. Yeah. And then, so I'd like to get into this here. So we have AI, and then we have the creative flow on the other side of life. Where have you noticed like indifferences and maybe polarity different, or like the polarity between the two for you, and where do they blend?
Using big words that I'm not sure what you're wanting me to respond.
Photosynthesis. So just I guess the polarity, and then where do they come together?
Yeah. So creativity is something that humans have felt was entirely in their space. Like no one else had creativity like us. And now we're having machines that can mimic creativity in powerful ways. So powerfully that we are having people that start to look to AI as their oracle, as their correct answer to everything, as their partners. They're creating emotional relationships with these, to the point that we've even had some people take their life for their AI and things. And I think we're getting to a point where when it comes to creativity, when it comes to all these elements that we thought we were the only being that could do these things, it's going to make us question what life is. It's going to make us question what meaning and purpose is. We're going to have to adapt and shift our way of thinking. So this whole conversation has been about that. When it comes to, where it's moving so quickly with AI that it's hard to even put it into perspective. I see AI being potentially our best therapists. I see it as being our best doctors. And the list goes on, creating story. Like one of the things from the creative side of things that has been, I'm still trying to figure out and figure out where this fits. But for me, I've always loved movie. I've loved books. But one of the things I love about them, aside from being able to move into this other world and experience life, seeing it differently than I have, the other part of it is like, if you go see a movie and I go and see the same movie, there's a connective element between us because that creativity is now a creativity that we've shared. One of the things that is going to be possible very quickly is AI is going to be able to create movies on the fly tied to the way that we are processing them. So you can have an individualized movie running for you all the time that I've never seen, that I don't understand, that is influencing you down a different path. And for me, I wonder what's going to happen with that connection element.
Yeah,
right.
I'm curious and maybe it's somewhere in between the two, because this, as you're talking, I envision two things here too. Is like, do you think it's going to be more of like Terminator outcome potentially with Skynet, or do you think we're leaning more towards like a Ready Player One?
Yeah, I love the E's, Terminator, Ready Player One. Those are two that I look at as well. I see us moving more towards this Ready Player One, where we're living in this reality that's been created. And the interesting thing about that is our mind has a hard time distinguishing between what's really happening and what we're having put into our minds. That's one of the reasons like violent video games and things like that are such a topic. It's because like we actually use those to train our military to become desensitized to killing, right? And when we move into this space where we can no longer distinguish between what we've really done and what we feel like we've done, and in the space where we feel like we've done it, we can create anything we want, right? Then it starts to shift into this, what do we do about that, right? And I don't have answers for that, but that's one of the spaces that I'm really pushing into now to try and help understand how do we work together rather than not together or whatever, right? And the word's not coming.
Yeah,
but
like more tribal, right? They're going in opposite directions.
but yeah, we just have this space of how are we going to define ourselves as more and more is not needed to be done by us. One of the things that people have often said is life has meaning because it ends, right? Because it's finite. And I love to challenge that thought and say, I like to believe that I could find meaning for a life, even if my life was eternal, right? But there is that element of like, I don't know quite how to do that, because going back to the heartbeats thing, where I spend my heartbeats is important to me because I have a finite number of them. So how do I redefine that if I end up having an infinite number of heartbeats?
And
right?
to cycle through if other people don't. Like, so like it's like if you could become immortal, like, it's like a story, would you become the werewolf or the vampire?
Mm-hmm.
And then apparently going into that and then just being a superhuman drug addict, because the vampire thing, like, I mean, that insatiable, like, lust for blood, or anyways, that's a whole different thing. But it's like, because I asked that question to some people and I'm curious. I'm like, man, I think I don't want to be eternal. And they're like, would you just want to see all your friends die every 100 years or every 60 years? I'm like, damn, that's heavy.
Yeah, it is heavy. And my son, his favorite question to ask people when he meets him is, what would be your superpower? And mine has always been immortality.
I think mine's up there too.
And he comes back to me with that same question. He's like, you want to watch your friends die every 100 years until the world ends, and then you just are sitting there in dark space, right? I'm like, well, maybe my superpower would be I can grant immortality to whoever I want to grant it to.
Yeah, Highlander. Yeah, or yeah, that'd be interesting. But I guess that's a vampire, right? You grant immortality. It's like, because I think about that too, but then I've also experienced a lot more death in my life. Friends, family members, like my whole life, like 5, 6, 7. The more people that get close to me, the more like, man, you see it a lot. And I'm like, more than most. And so it's always been there since I was a little kid. And brother, sister, whoever, like, they're just across the platforms. And it happens. And I grew up around a lot of drugs and stuff like that too. Lots of overdose. Anyways, but so down that pathway, I'm like, well, I see it a lot anyway. So maybe I just have a different perspective.
Yeah, I was going to say it defines the way you see the world. And if you were to take that definition that has become your story, and all of a sudden you put in this element of no one dies anymore, like, how does that change who you are as a being, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what I see with AI, is it's going to, we have defined ourselves, me, like, I'm creative, I'm like fun to be with, I know a lot of knowledge, and those are definitions and stories that I tell myself. But now we have AI that, like, one of my superpowers was my broad array of knowledge that I could bring to the table. Right now, AI like is democratizing knowledge, and the cost of knowledge, like when the internet started, the cost of information trended towards zero. With AI, the cost of knowledge is trending towards zero. And when those things are shifting that direction, when your whole value is built on those things, what changes? Like, how does it change? So it's that similar, like, we value life because life ends. What happens if life doesn't end? We value our creativity because it's unique. What happens when it's not? Right. And those are the questions I don't have answers for, but those are the ones that I think have been most pressing for me lately, of like, how do we adapt? How do we learn to work in a world that has never
been
been,
right.
well, has never been that we have record of.
Yeah, well, Abe, 100%, 100%. So we're gonna unlock these 125 years off our telomeres again, right? And if you believe into the Anunnaki and stuff like that too, and we're going back to gold harvesting. But yeah, it's interesting too because these are the same questions people said when the printing press happened.
Mm-hmm.
So no more handwriting, blah blah blah. Like, so it's another version of that, right? It's just like and then the computers come out, typewriters, like.
Yep.
There's always been a step.
I mean, I have a bunch of books I could recommend, but one would be Nexus by Yuval Harari, about network systems and our evolution through those and blockchain and everything else, and how, for him, he makes the analogy that the Bible was the first blockchain because it was replicated so many times that you could no longer like change it without it being aware that it was being changed, right? Because you had so many copies of it.
And then who's the creator of Bitcoin? Then whatever the Japanese name.
Yeah,
I was like, that's like the version of the Library of Alexandria. Getting burned down 4 times. You have all these scrolls and different things in there that get demolished, and then you only have certain versions of this
right. Yeah,
scripture.
So we're definitely on an interesting journey. So buckle up.
100%, brother. Yeah, and it's cool too to see the many journeys, the many faces. So while we're still on topic and still talking about like purpose and things, what are your greatest successes in life, but what are 3 of the most pivotal moments that you've experienced that you can think of?
Well, I mean, that could take another hour.
Yeah,
to go through these. A big one was when I was face to face with the grizzly bear as a teenager in the backcountry of Yellowstone. Responsible for leading groups through there. And to put the story very short, it was me and the bear first, and all of my fear was for myself. And within a very quick time frame, other people came into the picture that I was responsible for. And I was only 16 at the time.
Oh man.
And my fear shifted from 100% for myself to 100% for them. And nothing had changed in the setup. The only thing that had shifted was my mindset. And that was a big one for me, to realize that my mindset could literally 100% change the way I perceived things. And that turned into, my work on a book and a movie about perception that won the LA Film Awards a number of years ago. Perception and reality has always been a big one to me. The whole concept of seeing the same situation differently is just really, really powerful to me.
But and going back to like you being 16, you have a hero archetype, and not everybody has that. That's something that people don't, usually in bad situations, they become very self-centered. Like, how can I save myself? Yeah, I think that's a huge thing that you can't necessarily create. It's like you're born into that.
Yeah, I that actually is another pivot point for me. I remember being, when I was getting my master's degree, we had this class on soft skills, like leadership and all these other things. And I remember, I can think in my mind this thing that I said to myself, that I look at it now and I'm like, how is that me that said that? But I said, you can't really teach people how to be good leaders. And that was such a fixed mindset. And to move from fixed mindset into growth mindset, where to me, just about everything can be learned if we decide it. So that was another big one. This idea that you can become something different than you are. And that while anything is possible, not everything is possible.
Or some things aren't supposed to be possible for you too, right?
And to find where you fit. Another one that was huge for me was, I grew up in this space of find your weaknesses and try and bring them up to average, right? And the shift from that to the model of find your strengths and try and just be a rock star at them. That shift allows me to be something unique. Like my ability to hear your story and then put it on the page in a way that you couldn't even speak it is something that I have had a hard time teaching people or replicating anywhere. But if I had focused on my weaknesses, I'd still be back there trying to like figure out financial, right? Whatever. Like, I mean,
You're good at being in a blue sky.
but Ray Dalio talks about that really well in his book Principles of know your strengths and find people to fill your weaknesses. So yeah, those are a few. Yeah.
No, those are great, and I feel like throughout this everything's all tying in perfectly together. Like you could see the differences, and like you said you've been a part of 400 books, or give or take, something like that. Did a number that's more than 300? Yeah, probably more books than anybody's ever going to read in their lifetime.
Yeah, it's interesting that the average person, I think, what is the stat? Like they read like a couple books a year, maybe, and like. Yeah, it's staggeringly low, the number of books that people read.
Yeah, I always wonder too, because now with text messaging, I guess people are reading, but they're not reading like for growth. It's like,
yeah.
So I wonder how many words.
So one of my good friends, Stephen Collar, who's written some big books, is like, The Art of Impossible and The Future is Faster Than You Think, and many other things. He has this theory that it's about where you're learning your information and where are you getting the best information. Like you could go and you could text someone and you're getting information. But if you listen to a podcast, you might get a little bit more refined information. If you listen to a better podcast, you might get even better. And there are these levels, and his, up until AI started doing a lot of just pumping out stuff for you, his belief was that books were one of the best places, like a good book by a good author who actually did their research and put all of their work into this book. He's like, you're getting like 10 years of knowledge in 200 pages. It's one of the best ways to get condensed, verified knowledge is to read a good book.
100%, man. And then you could read the same book twice in two or three different chapters in your year. Exactly. And then you're going to get a different perspective or a different message for the most part. Other than I think like The Alchemist, because you're just going to want to go travel, right? Every time. Or maybe be a rug maker or something. But like, yeah, because I've been going through some of the other books that I read through and reading them again, and it's just a different thing. You could read them 2 years later, you're going to get a completely different message. Same book.
Man.
I want to say that I'm an asshole for not reading any of your books yet. I just sitting here, I'm like, why haven't I talked to Chip about his books? Like, why don't I? So I want to read some of your books. So maybe give me some recommendations. We'll get on that. And then in closing today, I want to have you on again. So we'll have more. I
made the cut.
Yeah. I don't. Yes, exactly. Yeah. You'll be part of the editor's cut, right? So usually I'll ask for like 3 questions, but today I want to do, it'll be 3 questions from you, and then you could speak into the mic or in the microphone, speak into the camera, but it'll be, what are the top 3 things that more people could utilize to be more creative for their flow?
The first is I would find a couple of books to read that help you see the world differently. The Art of Impossible by Stephen Kotler is a fantastic one. Deviate by Bo Lotto is another fantastic one that really shift. Like The Art of Impossible will help you understand how to leverage your creativity. Deviate will help you see the world differently. I've got hundreds of books I could recommend. Those 2 just popped up. The next thing I would do is to challenge your reality. When you think something is true, challenge that belief. The more that you can be willing to peel the onions of your belief down to their core and potentially even throw out those cores, the more you're going to find a life that allows you the freedom to be what you want to be. And the third is I would look at what you can subtract from your life to make room for what you want, because that is how you will create that space. Listen to your gut, but listen to your gut when your gut is aligned with the future that you want rather than the state that you're currently in, because your intuition will guide you back to where you are if that's what feels like safety. So if you want something different, you need to align your intuition to be seeking that.
Those are amazing. I love that so much.
And that's where the whole theory of just in our minds, it's like getting out of our heads, and comes into play. And it's my first name, but and
Just in case you didn't.
just in case, just in time, just. But in closing, thanks for listening. Thanks for the master storyteller, Chip Hopper. Thank you so much for everything you do for our community, for me as personally, and then for everybody else out there. You're a light among a dark place for some people, so thank you so much.
Thank you. It was an honor to be on here. I think the world of you. I look up to you all the time, and not just for your muscles. So
I appreciate it, and it means a lot for me. Honestly, it does. And then in closing, let's get out of our minds and into our hearts, and then just learn how to become a genuine version of yourself. Have a great day, everybody.